Doug Ford has ruined Ontario's housing market. Here's why. If you're a homeowner in Ontario, you have ample reason to be upset. In today's video, I'm going to share the housing bill that Doug Ford has just released, how it's going to impact you as a homeowner by causing your property taxes to go up, more of your neighborhood turning into triplexes, densifying it, and reducing the amount of street parking that's available, and possibly even reducing house price appreciation over the long term, resulting in you having less home equity. And if you're a tenant paying below market rent, this plan allows your rental apartment building to be demolished, forcing you to move out, renting a new place, and paying market rent. But this bill does come with some significant advantages for investors and developers, and more importantly, it actually tries to solve the rental housing crisis that we have here in Ontario by creating new rental housing. So let's start off with some news headlines around this topic. Developers seem super pleased about Doug Ford's new housing plan. Ontario announces sweeping housing changes that allow 3 units on one property. Doug Ford to gut Ontario's conservation authorities citing stalled housing, and it says that they're going to take power away from the agencies that help prevent flooding again. The NDP has come out saying that the housing bill is a devastating attack on renters. And finally, critics are saying that this new housing plan may lead to local tax hikes. You can see right now, not a lot of people are happy with Doug Ford's new housing bill. Here are some of the main changes that are going to come about from this housing bill. The first is that you're going to be able to add up to 2 additional units to any single family detached, semi-detached, or townhouse property. And they will only be required to have 1 parking space needed per unit. So you need 3 parking spaces to have 3 units in a property. No development charges will be charged for these additional 2 units. There's no minimum size requirement for these units, so they can be as small as you can reasonably fit a kitchen and a bathroom in a living space. And finally, municipalities won't be able to override these changes and put more restrictive rules on what it will require to add these additional housing units. Now, before we go any further, if you are interested to see in person what it looks like when you add 2 additional units to a home, check out our link in the comments below for our Niagara investment tour, where we showcase our clients' triplex conversions where they're adding 2 basement apartments into these properties. And I'm going to share a quick promo about this tour.
We completed our Welland investment tour. If you're interested in coming to our next investment tour, there's a link in the comments below. At these tours, we showcase 3 of the projects that our clients are currently working on, and we give a little package for everyone who comes, including the financials of the property as well as the drawings. So you can see exactly the layout of these projects, and you get to see it in person, ask any questions, and sometimes our clients come out as well to share their perspective. Sign up now.
And here are some more details about the bill. The first is to remove the power from cities to restrict demolishing or repurposing of older rental buildings and converting them into either a new rental building or a condo. The second is the reduction of powers that conservation authorities have to restrict or slow down development for environmental concerns. And the third is to allow areas that are currently protected by the Greenbelt legislation that are adjacent to existing cities, and to turn those land back into buildable land that cities can then run their infrastructure to and allow the building of more housing. So how does this affect you if you own a home in Ontario? First, property taxes are likely going to go up. By the removal of development charges and all the additional units that are being created, cities will need to spend more money in their infrastructure to bring, services to each home and to each apartment. This is going to increase the overall cost that needs to be spread out across the tax base, meaning everyone has to pay a little bit more in property taxes. Number 2, your neighbors are likely going to start adding basement apartments, garage apartments, garden suites, and up to 2 of them in each home. This is going to create more densification in your neighborhoods, more cars on the street, and just more people living there in general. And number 3, over time, you can expect house price increases to slow down as more supply is added to the market, more renters feel comfortable in the apartments they're renting that are newly created and finished to a high quality, and maybe cheaper than what it would cost them to own a similar home. Now, what are some of the benefits to you if you're a homeowner? The main benefit is if you want to create some additional income, you now have the option to add up to 2 additional units to your property. Especially if you own a home that has additional space you don't need and you're someone that needs additional income. For example, if you're going into retirement, you may have all this equity in your home, but it doesn't really do anything if you can use it to pay for your living expenses. So if you have 2 additional units rented out, that income could be very vital for you if you are someone in that situation. How does this bill affect renters? First, most important thing is it is going to to increase housing supply. There's going to be more choices for renters to choose from, from garden suites, garage apartments, basement suites of different sizes, right? Maybe they don't need a 1,000 square foot apartment, but they would like a 600 square foot apartment that's well finished and of a higher quality. There's going to now be much more choices to choose from. Number two, old buildings may be demolished. So if you are a renter living in an older rental building, you may be forced to move and pay the market rent in a new apartment. This is going to create some especially tough situations for those who cannot afford to pay the market rent, and it is unfortunately something where the government needs to step up and produce more public housing. This is not really something I think a private landlord should be forced to subsidize at a loss. It is really a social need that the government needs to take care of. And number three, if we can reach the point where we've created enough additional rental housing to the point that we saturate the rental market, we may finally get to the place where the rents start to stay the same or even decline, at least at the higher end of the rental spectrum. And that will trickle down to the lower quality rental apartments that are not renovated. They may be forced to reduce how much they charge to compete with those higher quality rental units. This is a great thing for renters as it gives you more supply and hopefully reduces the pace at which rents have been increasing recently. Now, how does this bill affect investors? If you already own a home in Ontario that you are renting out, now is the time to look at, can you add 2 additional units to the property to increase the monthly cash flow and also to add some additional housing stock? And for those of you looking to purchase a rental property, your options are now widening. Here is how this new bill is going to affect some of the cities that we work in. In the city of Hamilton, until recently, you needed to have a minimum of 700 square feet to create a basement apartment. You couldn't go less than that. And at one point, they were even asking for 3 parking spaces to create 2 units. So for a duplex, you needed to have 3 parking spaces. With this new bill, both of those are probably going to be removed. There's going to be no minimum square feet, and you'll be able to add 2 additional units to a property with only 1 parking space per apartment. In the city of St. Catharines, we face a different problem. The city of St. Catharines has a maximum of 650 square feet. So this is again a little bit absurd, but we were buying 1,000 square foot bungalows and you could only use up to 650 square feet of the basement to make an apartment. While it's not clear that this rule will be removed, by being allowed to add 2 basement apartments, you can basically shrink them further and use up the entire basement space to create 2 apartments. In the city of Niagara Falls, in an R1 zone, you were not actually allowed to create a legal basement apartment unless the homeowner was living upstairs. This rule is likely going to be removed, and we're now going to be able to add up to 2 basement apartments even in an R1 zone. In the cities of Fort Erie and Port Colborne, we are only allowed to add 1 additional unit. Now we should be able to go up to 2 additional units. And finally, in the city of Welland, where we've done the most number of these type of conversions, not much has changed. We've already been allowed to do 2 additional units for quite a while now. But one thing that may change is the speed that it takes for us to go through this process. Until recently, we've had to do 1 apartment at a time in order to avoid paying development charges on the second apartment. Now, since development charges are removed, we can just apply for a permit right away for both additional units, and it should speed up the timeline it takes to get these projects done. So here are my final thoughts about this housing bill. I personally think this is a great step for Ontario. We are going to create additional housing to meet the demand that we have, especially because we are an area that has a significant amount of immigration. This immigration has greatly helped our economy, but it has created a housing crisis, and this is a great way to take some steps forward to reduce the impact of the lack of housing. And if you look around the world, Japan is a great example. After World War II, it had this tremendous population growth, and they had to incorporate some similar measures in order to create enough housing to meet the demand. In Japan, they incorporated on a federal level 1 zoning plan for the entire nation, in which the lowest density residential zone could build townhouses, triplex, very similar to what this bill is proposing. And it led to a huge number of homes being built, rental apartments being built, moderating the pace at which rents increased, and even suppressing house prices, allowing new home buyers to enter the market and having more options to choose from with newly built homes. Now, I still stand by what I said in the beginning of the video. If you are a homeowner, this bill bill doesn't really help you. But if you are someone who cares about the future of the province of Ontario, I think this is a great step. What is the alternative here? Without measures like this, we may head to a situation where we start to have slums in the city of Ontario where the population growth is so high and there's not enough housing to meet that demand. If you look in developing nations that had huge population growths and did not have adequate housing, adequate infrastructure, people live in very desperate situations, and I would hate if that were the case in Ontario. So this is a great way to take a step towards reducing the risk of that happening here. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think this bill is going to be sufficient to meet the housing crisis? Do you think there's going to be some unintended consequences as a result? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more about what we do, check out the link in the comments for our Welland investment tour. Until next time, all the best.